Welcome to the Stronger After Stroke podcast. I'm your host, Rosa Hart, the stroke nurse navigator here at the Norton Neuroscience Institute in Louisville, Kentucky. Today, I have a stroke survivor caregiver with me today. This is Tiffany Cardwell. Thank you
Hi.
for being with us today, Tiffany.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being willing to share your story. She's been taking care of, well, both of her parents, but especially her father after a stroke. And so that is an experience that affects the whole family. So could you tell us a little bit, first of all, about you and your parents and what your life with them was like before the stroke?
Sure. Well, both my parents have been happily married for a very long time, and life before the stroke, honestly, you don't realize how much you feel blessed until you realize you're not able to do, some things. And they were very active, always involved in the community, traveled a lot. They both love to explore. I think that's where I get my love of travel and doing things. And um, it really just completely shifted our world this past year. So in doing that, I live here in Kentucky, of course, in Louisville. And at the time the first stroke occurred, he was actually on vacation with my mom in the Philippines. So that made it even more difficult. In just a year prior, they had moved to Louisville to be with me and be able to have someone close by. My brother's in Chicago, so in winters there, not so fun. So my parents were like, I think Louisville may be the better option at that point. So that's kind of what started everything was, over a year now, back in March last year when
Yeah.
that happened. So
And then I know we had spoken before. How long was your dad kind of stranded in the Philippines after his stroke?
sure. I think that's the other thing, especially if people have parents that are traveling abroad or they may be abroad. What you don't realize is, they really don't let you fly back quickly. That was March when that happened. And the only reason I remember this is because it was Derby week
Oh, no.
when I could come back. So 2 months later,
Wow.
I could come and travel that Monday after Derby week, which is, of course, when everyone leaves. But,
Yeah, yeah. It's a
my
great
brother,
time to come back, honestly.
I know, but my brother and I wanted to get there as quickly as we could.
Yeah.
And it took some coordination because there were some flights that they had already scheduled. And, it's expensive to go abroad for things. So we had to do a little coordination with the agency, travel agency, to try to make sure that the ticket that they had before would be able to get them back at
Oh,
the same time. And as much as you would think because of health reasons, some of those things could maybe be forgiven and changed, not as easily as you would think. So I guess that's the other thing also that's important to make sure.
yeah. How did the stroke affect him physically?
Well, physically, and again, he's had a couple. So the first stroke back in March, his right hand and his left leg, or his right leg, were both just numb. And so he had to go through physical therapy, occupational, and speech therapy. Fortunately, his speech was not as impeded. However, speech therapy covers a lot of things that that's the other thing too that I think is important for people to realize. Just because it's called speech therapy, that doesn't mean it's just working on speech. It's actually working on a lot of pieces that your brain is trying to connect to that it did before, but maybe is having trouble with now. So that was the biggest impact. So he had a cane by the time that we were in the Philippines to pick him up in May. He had a cane that he was able to walk with, which was great. We weren't sure. My brother and I were really nervous because even if you do Facebook Messenger, which you can actually do for free to be able to call someone abroad, a lot of people that I've talked to didn't even realize that piece of it. Um, Still hard to tell whether someone's really, as active as what they were prior to a stroke. And so we were a little nervous to, see him and not quite sure how do we come back from there and take him back to the US. So, but the therapy that he received was wonderful. He got to the hospital pretty quickly, and that's difficult to do in the Philippines because it's still pretty third world in many ways, in terms of access to things. But they happen to be living close to one of the best hospitals. It's called Asian Hospital there in the Philippines. And so that was really fortunate.
Mhm.
Um, but they don't really have, like we have here, EMS that can be there in minutes, which is critical as well. But the ambulance was able to get them there in time
Good.
to help him.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So once he got here, you had talked to me about how you had wanted to do a lot of traveling with them and share those experiences with them. What was your experience like as a daughter, kind of becoming more of a caregiver at a time when you really didn't expect to?
Yeah, it's been a whole life change. Not just for myself, but even my brother, who, he is in Chicago, but he comes and travels with his wife. His kids are in California right now, so they're not here, but sometimes they'll come when they're free from work, drive in the 5.5, 6 hours that it takes, come for a few hours, spend the time with family, and then drive back. So, kudos for them to be able to do that and still be able to continue to do what they need to do. And again, switching to a caregiver is a whole different story than probably what people think of.
So, what does that mean for you? What does your life look like now daily
Yeah,
versus how
yeah.
it was before?
Well, part of it is I was pretty driven. I still am very driven career-wise, right? And I've always tried to integrate, joy in there and volunteer across the community. And I think it really shifts your mindset around, gosh, what is the main priority? What's happening? So no longer was it going to be work, it was going to be my parents. So um, when we got back from the Philippines, that was a decision that was made where I opened up my own consulting
Mhm.
business. I've done human resources work for, gosh, 30 plus years and have been, having a wonderful career with it, successful career. But then this comes into play and you've got to reprioritize. And it wasn't hard, not at all. Just seeing him be able to get on the plane with us was just wonderful. Because again, we weren't quite sure. My mom is so kind. She tries to protect us as her children, right? Um, sorry, I'll try not to cry. But sometimes it's tough because she's there by herself. Fortunately, we had family there, but still, even then, it still makes it hard. So we weren't sure what we were going to see, and fortunately, he was recovering well, and we knew we could continue that recovery here. So, and actually, it was Norton that where he was doing his therapy, and then eventually, when the second stroke happened, that's when we ended up in the hospital again. So,
Yeah. Do you ever feel like, even though you're trying to step into that role as a caregiver, but when your parents are used to protecting you from things, you
yes.
have to like do kind of a guessing game to find out what they need and how you can help them because
Sure.
they're probably not going to tell you.
Well, you want to be respectful, of course. They're
Yeah.
your parents, right? But you also want to help guide them because at this point, they need your guidance more than you realize. And I think at first, um, I tried to kind of accommodate as much as I could with what needed to happen. And now I love that I think my relationship with both of my parents have evolved so much more And they know and trust that my brother and I are doing all the things that we need to do for them. And so it's not the trust piece, it's just more that we were their kids.
Yeah.
We're not the caregivers, and it's kind of a switch in roles. It's a little bit more of the parenting, and a little bit more of the shift in their lifestyle that I need to help both my mom, who's now in independent living, and then my dad's in assisted living with a caregiver.
Mm.
So that was probably the biggest change, is just not only for myself, but for my parents to just understand and let go, and understand that they're in good hands. We're doing all the things that need to happen. But that's really tough. It's a tough shift, and continues to be. So, but every time um we have a situation come up and we may not agree on something that needs to happen, we'll really talk through it and have family come in and help us work through the situation. Because again, sometimes, just like with work, when I do human resources work, what I tell some of the clients I work with is, you're so close to the situation that your emotions take over, and you're just seeing this one focused direction, and there are really multiple facets that you can take to a solution. So that's worked out very well, and again, it's just brought our family closer and closer. Not that, I mean, we are very close
Yeah.
family-wise, even though they were traveling all over the globe, and spent time in Hawaii. They were in Hawaii resident
Oh my.
for, gosh, 20 years plus, a long time. And then during the pandemic, what happened was they were in the Philippines when the pandemic happened with COVID, and they couldn't leave for a few years. So, yeah, they were stuck. But again, just being able to virtually have the conversations we had was so wonderful. So, but again, that shift in caregiving it's just a whole different level, that you just have to kind of touch lightly at first and understand where they're coming from too, because this is a big shift for them and what they were used to doing. But just then, understanding and knowing that every decision we make comes out of love.
Yeah,
So, and it's the best decision that we think we can make at the time.
definitely.
So,
Yeah, that having that trust as a foundation, I'm sure made all the
yeah,
difference.
it does. It does every day. And having family and friends who are there to support has been huge. One week I still recall, my dad was in the hospital. My mom was, they were over at the veranda in Norton Commons in an apartment at the time. And I had a whole week lined up of friends that were so kind to take her to the rehab center, because he was at Fraser for a little bit afterwards. Take her for lunch. I had someone lined up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Aw.
And those are the type of, friends and family that you want to make sure you have around you when something like that happens. It is so helpful, as well as for me to be able to talk to.
Definitely. So you mentioned having a different friend lined up for
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And can I just tell you, I've known this woman a few years now, and that is the most Tiffany thing you
Uh,
will ever hear, because that's something that I feel like you have lined up for
it is
yourself.
nice.
So
Yeah.
is that something you get from your mom? Yours
I think
being a social
so.
butterfly
I
and
I think so. She's always so kind and friendly. Honestly, she lives in the Willows right now over on Hurstburn Westport area, and they have just been wonderful. And in the independent living, they're only about 15, 17 units in there, and they're truly just independent apartments. Except you get your food made. You have
wow,
3 meals a
that
day.
is my kind of
I know.
independence.
Breakfast gets served in the morning to your room. It's lovely. That's what I told her. I said, "Wait, when can you move it?"
Right.
It includes all the activity. I mean, it's just, I
Wow.
knew it would be a great place, but she's never been by herself. I
Hmm.
mean, this is a new change. So her friends there, they are just wonderful. They all check on each other. If someone doesn't come for breakfast gets served in the room, but someone doesn't come for lunch or dinner or an activity, they will check on you.
Oh,
I mean, what a relief when we had that crazy storm,
Mhm.
snow, ice, etcetera, because there was no way I pretty much see them every day, but there was no way I could drive over there because I couldn't get out of my neighborhood. And you could virtually speak, but just the comfort of knowing that they were in a safe place was huge with friends and being able to know that I didn't have to worry about them, and I'm sure they were stocked with food or
Yeah.
enough to be able, to have that in the facility there because they have rehab, they have assisted living and independent living, and then patio homes in the back. So
Wow.
it really I had no idea. We were just when he was ready to leave after his second stroke to go to rehab, that was one of the places that, they had recommended, and when we went over there, just really found the staff very caring, and
Mhm.
it was helpful.
Yeah, and I think, I grew up visiting nursing homes, for example,
Sure.
with my family or with church members,
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. And the sentiment was that people would rather not go to a nursing home,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, that is not the case everywhere now. There are
I
so many
agree.
different options. So I really appreciate that description from you. I got to visit one the other day to
Sure.
talk to some people about stroke prevention, and I was like, "When can I move here?"
I know.
Because it was kinda like you described, it was a different one.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they have activities for them
yeah,
every 4 hours. You can choose. It's
you don't
always an
have
option.
to
You don't
participate,
have to
yeah.
do it. You can either eat in your room, you can eat with with everyone. If you're not feeling well, it's okay.
Yeah,
They will physically bring the tray to your room. It is so nice. And again, I think, you mentioned earlier this was definitely unexpected. It's not anything that we had planned for. But if we could have planned for it, this is probably the best option that we
yeah,
could have, had. Same thing, my mom used to volunteer at nursing homes. So when I was little, my brother and I would go to the nursing homes and actually like play cards, or there were a few of the residents that she would go visit because she would volunteer with the church or on her own. So I think that stuck with me as well. And you're right. I think there's a little bit of a stigma around nursing homes, and I'll tell you, they have changed a lot, and they help families really be able to continue to live on with their lives and be able to also make sure their parents are safe. So, I think people need to reconsider and look at all of their options
right, and
around
explore
them.
what's available,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit more about, other things that you weren't planning for because you were planning for trips and retirement and things like that, not
sure.
necessarily these living arrangements or,
Right.
as we talked about, having power of attorney and things for your parents, and
Yeah,
so what would you say you would want other people who were in your situation to know going into this? Like,
sure.
what do you wish you knew that
Yeah.
would have made your journey a little easier?
Well, 100%. That power of attorney has been key in making sure that I could be and my brother could be involved in every step of the way for my dad's care, as well as moving into and transitioning into independent and assisted living for them. So I'm just so glad we were fortunate. A very good friend of the family was kind enough to come to the hospital physically. He was an attorney, brought witness with him, and we were able to, before he really kind of lost more of his mental capabilities, um, they were able to have him. He even signed, and he was of sound mind and faculty at the time, because that has helped so much, not just from also the health perspective, but from the financial perspective. I never knew that there were all these different pieces before. So,
Yeah, because there's a healthcare surrogacy element. I know when I was working in the hospital, we had chaplains who were notaries
sure,
who could help fill
exactly.
out the healthcare surrogacy form.
Uh huh.
And at least what I recall, that was differentiated
Right.
from a financial power of attorney because one is for healthcare decisions. So
Oh, yeah.
some families will have, if they have two children, one will be the healthcare surrogate and one will be
Right.
the financial power of attorney. That
Right.
way, there's not just checks and balances, but also like division of labor. So
Oh,
all the
sure.
pressure isn't on one person.
Right, right. So health-wise, because I was here and my brother and I knew if anything were to happen to either one, we can't wait for them to try to get a hold of him
Mhm.
if we did a joint one. So I was in charge of that piece. Of course,
Yeah.
I would be talking to him
Yeah.
and because I would not wish on anyone to have to make any decisions by themselves
Right.
on this because it's important and you want to make sure that, you feel like you're making the best decision you can for your parents. So, and then we're both jointly on the financial end of things because there's a lot to leaf through.
Yeah.
I guess that's the other thing too, I would say. Um, Depending on the generations that your parents have grown up with, sometimes there's a big line between, gosh, we're the parent, you're the children.
Mhm.
And so I think that line's blurring more and more now as we are more open with our kids on everything
Yeah.
and what they need to know. It's a little more difficult for parents to be that way. And again, as I mentioned earlier, too, letting go of some of that but then also realizing that, oh my gosh, what are they gonna do if they don't know where all of these pieces are?
Yeah.
Where are all the important documents that need, to be discovered? Who are the contacts? All of that. So I get a little bit of my organizational piece from my mom. She's pretty anal about
Does she keep
Organ
all of
oh
that
my gosh.
organized?
She's got, multiple, like, notebooks of, contact person, company, number, account numbers, all of that.
Well, that's great. At least it's
Oh my
organized.
gosh,
Yeah.
it has been just a lifesaver. But you know what? Not everyone does that.
Right. It's so true. I would definitely say
So
that's an exception rather than a
it
rule.
has been so helpful, in being able to go through what we needed to go through, and continue to right now. So, and again, depending again on what your parents may have in place, you might not realize that they have a property somewhere or that they've invested in something. So it's important to just it's a hard conversation to have your parents to an extent, but it's also an important one. And to do it early, as early as possible, because you just never know, what's going to happen and just to be prepared as much as possible.
And know their preferences and things
Yes,
like that,
and that's important
Maybe
as well.
even frame the conversation that way of like, just not to be morbid,
Right.
but just so I know what you want, so I can honor what you would want. If
Yeah,
you're not able to tell me,
yeah.
can you tell me now?
I love, lately, as in unfortunately, I've had several friends, parents pass away recently, but I love the fact that in some cases where maybe there was a terminal illness going on, they actually had a celebration of life before they passed.
Right, and
They actually had a reception. Everyone was able to find peace and be able to say goodbye and it wasn't rushed. It wasn't during, the wake and all of that. I love that people are putting more thought into all of that now.
yeah, and especially because then you can say those things directly to the person.
Right.
Because the worst part about a eulogy is you say these wonderful things about somebody, but they don't get to hear it.
Right.
And they could probably benefit from knowing that their life made yours better.
Right.
Right. And so I'm so thankful for things like that
Yes.
to really give those words of affirmation to people
Yes.
while they're still with you.
Well, they're here, and then they also, to me, feel like they can leave, feeling as if they've put some closure to some of the things that maybe they were thinking, "Gosh, I wish I would have."
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one of the things that I think is wonderful. Um, there are a lot of church groups now that actually put together all of the different details from the
Wow.
arrangements to where, the burial spots would be,
Uh huh.
what the program would look like. I sing in the Holy Trinity choir for we call it the Resurrection Choir,
Mhm.
and so we get a chance to help celebrate in that, for anyone that's passed and their families, and
Oh,
it just that music adds just so much to the
yeah.
soul. So, uh, like I said, it's just been a kind of a shift too on how the world sees things because you have everything going on from a birth perspective
Mhm.
in life, but we don't talk about too much on the end of life. And it's okay. And I've learned a lot myself just in working with my parents and my dad, and I always laugh at my mom's like, "Oh, you never know," and I said, "Please don't talk like
Right.
that." Because I would like to. I love it. It's just a blessing to be able to spend as much time as I can with her now, and as much time with my dad, though he's not cognitively, all there. It's okay. His humor's there.
Oh,
Even the
good.
staff sees it. I mean, he's just so funny. And I love that he still will remember certain things to a T. He used to be an anesthesiologist, so
Oh, wow.
technical terms, when we go see whether it's the neurosurgeon or the cardiologist, he can speak with them as if there was nothing missing. It's amazing, but it's just the general conversations. But it's okay. We've adjusted. We know, and he loves his grandchildren. He'll ask about them all the time. And I haven't seen him in a while. I'll remind him and I'll bring pictures. I think those are the things that you need to cherish,
Mhm.
even though dementia may be setting in or anything like that. It's okay, because that person's still there. That's still my dad. That's still my mom, and the grandparents to my kids and my brother's kids. So I think just enjoying all of that to continue to be. But I think the biggest thing I've learned as well is to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't. I didn't at least.
Now you are good at enjoying life.
I
That is
do
true.
love to enjoy life.
Um, so how have you been able to more intentionally take care
Right.
of yourself so
Yeah.
that you don't get burnout taking care of your parents too?
Sure. I mentioned to you about just, going out and doing consulting work myself. And, it's been wonderful because I can take on as much work or as little work as needed. And I can also assist my friends who have their own businesses as well to refer clients to them. I
Have
mean,
you had to start saying no more though,
yes,
even so?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And
Has it gotten easier?
no.
Wow. I was
You've
hoping
known
you
me
were.
for a little bit, Rosa. So, I will always, if I can make it, I will be there.
Yep.
I'm not one to shy away from being able to help a friend and be present for something. And I enjoy it. It's fun,
Right.
getting to connect.
That recharges you.
Yeah, it does. It does. So that's part of what, not only balancing the work piece because it depends on, each individual, but I'm the type of person I have to continue to work when my husband laughs because he'll be long retired before I ever retire. And I said, that's okay. I don't mind that. And
Then he
then
can support your independence by cooking for you every meal,
exactly.
right?
And you know what? He's a great cook and he actually does cook most of the meals.
I
So
know.
I will have to tell you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
And he's been such a wonderful support with everything. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there are some organizations that I've had to roll off the board
Mhm.
because it's just too tough to do, a lot of things all at once. But there's still a few that I stay on and a few that I make sure even though I might not be on that board, I'm still going to support them, whether it's financially, whether it's, an event, whether it's to just refer them to other donors or others who I know would enjoy some of the opportunities that they have. I still continue to do that.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. And just to also try different things. So I used to play sand volleyball a lot. I
Oh,
mean, just nonstop. And about a year ago, I mean, really honestly, right when this was all happening with my parents, um, I just had to make the decision of, gosh, I can't join a team if I can't physically be there, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than that. So, and I had been playing with this team over at Baxter Jacks for, gosh, over 10 years. You'll laugh. It's called the Invisible Spider Monkeys. I can't remember who gave us that name, but it was one of those things that I kept, sharing with them all that was happening with my parents. And finally, we actually ended up winning 3 different championships in a row. And I said, I think it's time.
Go time to go out on top.
I think it's time. I will sub
There you go.
for teams, but I joined the local golf ladies amateur golf group. It's called the LPGA. Just wonderful. I don't golf.
But you do now?
I can putt.
Yeah, very good.
So they have been wonderful. Again, just learning something new and continuing to just exercise my mind and my body on different things is probably one of the biggest help that I could have done for myself from personal care standpoint. When my dad ended up, unfortunately, in the hospital, what I thought was going to be a couple weeks recently ended up 3 weeks. In between that, I just one Saturday took a break, went and got my nails done. I just went and just did that.
Clear your mind.
Just for an hour to clear my mind. And fortunately, I mean, just wonderful staff again that helped him at Norton, which was great. But it was scary. I didn't know what was happening. We weren't quite sure. And now he's, even his occupational therapist that I spoke with yesterday, he said this is the best I've seen him.
Oh,
Be
great.
able to do his exercises and connect and all of that. So again, there's still, dad's still there.
There's
Dad's gonna
good
be
days
dad.
and bad days,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And
But thank you so much for sharing about this full circle journey with your parents, and I'm glad that they're doing well right now. And
yeah,
they're
they
so lucky.
are.
They're so lucky
Oh,
to have you for real.
thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, thanks.
So, if you have enjoyed this episode of the Stronger After Stroke podcast, feel free to leave a comment wherever you're listening or if you're watching on YouTube, and let us know if you have a similar experience or if yours is a little different. If you have questions about life after stroke and how to have your best outcome, and there's a topic we haven't touched on yet, please leave a suggestion in the comments, and we'd be interested in looking into that in the future. So stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you then.